Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wrestler Spotlight. I am your host, Corey Vautour, and today we are looking at an innovator in the history of professional wrestling, Chris Colt. Chris Colt, who was largely forgotten by wrestling fans for years. Even I only found out who Chris Colt was in 2015, maybe 2016, when I heard Jim Cornette talk about him. A very controversial wrestler, but like I said, one of the biggest innovators in the history of professional wrestling. So let's get into Chris Colt's early career. So Chris Colt is actually not his real name. His real name is Charles Harris. The names that he would use in his early wrestling career would be Maurice Chevier and the Magnificent Chevier. The earliest matches I can find are from 1965, even having a match versus Bruno Sammartino. In 1966, he would catch a huge break, teaming up with Golden Boy Ron Dupree. The pair would adopt the tag team name of the Hells Angels, sometimes known as the California Hells Angels. Ron Dupree was 10 years older than Chris Colt and really took Chris Colt under his wing. They would be known as a brother tag team. Chris Colt would even take the name of Paul Dupree, but in real life they were not brothers at all, but in fact they were a couple. Quite possibly the first gay couple in pro wrestling. The first territory that they would see a lot of success in is the Arizona Athletic Association, where they would win the World Tag Team titles 4 times. Now in Arizona, they used both the Hells Angels and the Comancheros gimmick. The story is that the real Hells Angels did not want their name used in pro wrestling. So that's where the Comancheros gimmick came from. But it would be a very similar gimmick to the Hells Angels, a biker gimmick. There's not a lot of information about their time in Arizona. One person that I know they feuded a lot with is Pancho Pico. Quite possibly the thing they are remembered the most for in Arizona is getting the entire promotion banned from TV after they burned an American flag on TV. They would also have success in big-time wrestling out of Detroit. That would be the Sheik's territory. They would win the NWA World Tag Team titles 3 times in Detroit. They would wrestle such stars as Bobo Brazil, Rocky Johnson, the Mighty Igor, Bull Curry, all during their time in Detroit defending the NWA World Tag Team titles. In 1969 and 1970, he would work for the World Wrestling Association out of Indianapolis. This was Dick the Bruiser's territory. He would win the WWA World Tag Team titles under a new name and a new tag team. He would team with Jack Dillinger, also known as Don Fargo. He would go by the name of Jim Dillinger, another brother tag team, and they would be known as the Chain Gang. It would be a short-lived tag team, and he would be back teaming with Ron Dupree not long after that. The Hells Angels would add 2 more pieces of gold to their resume in 1974 and 1975 when they would win the NWA Gulf Coast Tag Team titles. Not long after that, Ron Dupree would stop wrestling because he would have a series of heart attacks the previous years. By this point, Charles Harris was no longer Paul Dupree. He had transformed into Chris Colt. Now, the rumor is that he got the name Colt from a gay porn magazine from the 60s or 70s. Ron Dupree at this point was doing odd jobs in wrestling like announcing and all that. Tragedy would strike on October 17, 1975, as Ron Dupree, while doing the ring announcing, would suffer a massive heart attack, and he would pass away. Chris Colt would have a massive transformation, adopting face paint and entrance music, the first time this would happen in professional wrestling. He would come out to the song Welcome to My Nightmare by Alice Cooper. Once he would win his matches, the song No More Mr. Nice Guy by Alice Cooper would play. He would also be the first to use the top rope flying elbow as a finishing move, someone way ahead of his time. While he was part of the Hells Angels tag team, he was known for causing a few riots. And now that Ron Dupree was gone, that did not matter, because as Chris Colt, he still caused a lot of riots. Quite possibly the biggest riot that he would cause would be one night when he would enter a steel cage high on peyote. He would start hallucinating and seeing giant spiders climbing the cage. He would start fighting the referee and the fans just trying to get out of there, causing a huge riot. These are just normal things that would happen back in the territory days. Chris Colt would finally win some singles gold, winning the Arizona heavyweight title and the NWA Mississippi heavyweight title. In 1976, he would start wrestling for the Big Bear Promotions run by Dave McKigney. He would win the promotion's top title, the North American heavyweight title. The picture you see on the thumbnail and on the screen right now, that is Chris Colt with the North American heavyweight title. He would also start wrestling in Tennessee for the NWA Mid-America promotion, winning the NWA Mid-America heavyweight title 2 times. The Mid-America title would later on go to the CWA, that is Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett's promotion. Such names to hold that title include Macho Man Randy Savage, Jerry Lawler, Dutch Mantell, and a host of others. Chris Colt would go up north and join a few Canadian territories, including Vancouver All-Star Wrestling and Big Bear Promotions. In Vancouver All-Star Wrestling, he would become Vancouver Tag Team Champion 2 times with Bobby Jaggers and Buddy Rose. From 1982 to 1983, he would return to Big Bear Promotions and he would feud with the Canadian Wildman, Dave McKigney, winning the North American heavyweight title another 3 times. That would be 4 in grand total. Dave McKigney is another interesting individual. He would train and wrestle bears, most famously Terrible Ted the Bear. A famous story about Dave McKigney is that his girlfriend was mauled by one of his bears as she was taking a shower. Now, the young lady obviously passed away. There were rumors that the bear was in heat. A very sad story. You can find newspaper clippings on this story online. Pretty brutal, if you ask me. Chris Colt would also wrestle outside of North America, competing in Europe and also competing in Mexico's EMLL. He would wrestle such names in Mexico as El Solitario, Rey Mendoza, and El Rayo de Jalisco. In 1986, he would wrestle a handful of matches in Central States Wrestling and would also start wrestling in Alabama's Continental Championship Wrestling, slightly changing his name to Chris Von Colt and portraying a neo-Nazi character. From 1979 to 1987, Chris Colt would wrestle for the Pacific Northwest Wrestling promotion. This would be the Portland territory. In 1987, his character was known as the Mafioso and also the Barber. He would have this cream that would remove hair, so he would test it out on his arms and on his tag team partner's arms, and it would remove the hair completely. His wrestling career would pretty much be done after that, after years of abusing his body in the ring and because of other things outside the ring. You see, Chris Colt was a big drug user and a big alcoholic. He loved the rocker lifestyle. He idolized Janis Joplin and even told some people that he would love to die choking on his vomit just like Janis Joplin did. He was also Joe Cocker's bodyguard at one point. So he just loved that lifestyle. The music he came to the ring to, Alice Cooper. He was a huge fan of Alice Cooper. Though what he would wear is what Janis Joplin would wear. He would then wear the leather jackets and he would have like patches of Alice Cooper and all that. He really loved the rock and roll lifestyle. He lived life like there was no tomorrow. Once wrestling was over for him, he found himself in the adult film industry, filming a few pornographic films. There's not much information about him in the 90s, and there's not even a lot of information about his final years on this earth. Charles Harris, Chris Colt, would pass away either on May 28th, 1995, or on August 30th, 1996. The specific date is uncertain. I did see a grave site, so it did say May 28th, 1995. But CageMatch.net says 1996, but what is for sure is he died of AIDS. He was also rumored to have been a born-again Christian in the 90s as well. It is also rumored that he died in a homeless shelter in Seattle, Washington. A lot of wrestlers have said that Chris Colt never made it to the big times, meaning a major promotion like the WWF or the NWA, because of the stereotype of him being gay and not willing to push a gay man. The wrestlers that did work with Chris Colt said that he was the absolute best in the ring. He is one of those guys that would want to take the stiffest shots and the hardest bumps just to make wrestling feel that much more real. He was truly someone ahead of his time and someone forgotten as a major superstar of the territory days. I'm going to list off his championship accomplishments that I could find. This might not be it, but I'm going to list off what I have found. He was a one-time Arizona heavyweight champion. He was a four-time North American heavyweight champion in Big Bear Promotions. A two-time Gulf Coast Tag Team champion. A two-time NWA Mid-America champion, that would be in NWA Mid-America in Tennessee. He would also win the NWA Mississippi heavyweight title, would be a two-time Vancouver Canadian Tag Team champions in Vancouver All-Star Wrestling, would have one reign as the NWA World Six-Man Tag Team champions, would win the NWA World Tag Team Championships 4 times, 3 of those with his partner Ron Dupree as the Hells Angels. He would hold the NWA Texas Tag Team titles once. He would win the WWA World Tag Team titles once as part of the Chain Gang, and would win the Arizona version of the World Tag Team titles 4 times, all 4 times with his tag team partner Ron Dupree as either the Hells Angels or the Comancheros. In March 2024, Season 5 of Dark Side of the Ring will be coming out, and one of the episodes will be dedicated to Chris Colt. This is the main reason I made this video, is because I always wanted to do a video on Chris Colt. He's such an interesting character in the history of professional wrestling. We're probably going to find out a lot of the things that I didn't know doing this video on that episode of Dark Side of the Ring. I really can't wait. It's unfortunate that there's only a handful of matches from Chris Colt's career online, and there's only one match of him and Ron Dupree wrestling as the Hells Angels in Big Time Wrestling. I believe this is an episode from 1968 or 69. On that episode, there's also a young Ox Baker without the facial hair, so that's pretty interesting. But yeah, that full episode is on YouTube. It's Detroit Big Time Wrestling 1969. I just looked it up. The California Hells Angels on this episode face off against a young Jim Dillon. You might know him as James J. Dillon or J.J. Dillon, manager of the Four Horsemen, and his tag team partner, longtime WWF employee Arnold Skoland. So with that, that's the end of this episode. Chris Colt, he was doing things that were popular in the 80s and 90s. He was doing it in the 60s and 70s. He was a trailblazer. I hope this opens eyes on people that forgot about this guy. He was a main event talent, in my opinion. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like I said in previous episodes, Fridays at 6 p.m. are going to be the Maritime Warrior shows. Shows that I have so far: Wrestling in 1990, Japanese Wrestling with the Maritime Warrior, and Wrestler Spotlight. Wrestler Spotlights that we've already done. We've looked at Sick Nick Mondo and Japanese legend Genichiro Tenryu. In time, more shows will be added, but for now, that's what I'm going to be doing, these 3 shows. And if you have any suggestions or wrestlers you would like to see on Wrestler Spotlights, leave a comment. I'd like to know what you guys think, and hopefully I'm doing a good job in entertaining all of you. I really enjoy doing this, having the time of my life. Also, don't forget the other podcasts that I'm a part of, Wrestling with the Bros, and the Unofficial Beau Séjour Senior Hockey League podcast. And I also have my buddy Joel, who does Jolteon Plays. You can't miss that. He's been doing a lot of great stuff lately, Pokemon card unboxing and all that. So yeah, thank you for listening, and have a great day.